Hi, I welcome you to this very interesting topic of balancing accounts. This is an area where students make mistakes. They mess up the balancing mechanics and they lose marks. And remember that if there is a mistake in balancing an account, then all the remaining work is wrong. So you cannot balance your trial balance and you cannot balance your balance sheet. So I'm giving you the technique of how to balance account, and you have to note down the techniques and always follow these techniques, because in the haste, if you short circuit the technique, then you will land in trouble. So let's get started and see how to balance accounts. Before we get started, I request you to please like and subscribe my channel as an encouragement to me for producing more interesting presentations. Thank you. Now, as you know very well, that accounts normally have a opening balance, and certain accounts will have this opening balance on the credit side of the account, and most of the accounts will have the opening balance on the debit side of the account. So the account that I'm going to show you to explain the balancing mechanics is in fact an accounts payable, which normally has the opening balance plotted on the credit side of the account. So let's proceed. One thing that you have to remember is that these opening balance are generally provided in the question. So always look for the opening balances whenever you get a question on financial accounts. So in this example, the opening balance that is available is accounts payables, and Rexon is the name of the vendor, and $45,000 is due to Rexon. So let's proceed. So as I explained earlier, that accounts payable normally have opening balance on the credit side of the account. So this $45,000 is plotted on the credit side of the account. So now you can see that the opening balance is plotted in the account of Rexon Incorporated. So I'll post some entries to complete this account. So I got some transactions coming from the bank, which means the payments that have been made to Rexon, and also some purchases of laptops are recorded on the credit side of the account. So we assume that these are the only entries in this account for a particular month. Now we start our balancing steps, and the first step is that we have to find out whether the totals of the debit column are higher value or the totals of the credit column are higher value. So we have to make this decision we can make this decision by looking at the account, or else we can use a calculator. If you are using a calculator, add up all the figures on the debit side and note down on a piece of paper, and then add all the figures in the credit column and write down the figure. Then you can easily decide whether the debit side total is higher value or the credit column total is higher value. So this is a decision that you have to make, and this is our first step in the balancing mechanics. The second step is to draw two parallel lines down below the column, whichever column is higher value. So if the debit column has higher value, so you draw two parallel lines in the debit column, and if the credit column has higher value, then you draw two parallel lines down below the credit amount column. So as you can see, it's the same account of Rexon, and now we've discovered that the credit side column has higher value. So as you can see that two parallel lines are drawn, and in between the two parallel lines the total amount is written, which is $66,000. Now the next step is to draw two parallel lines on the opposite side of the account. So if the higher total appeared on the credit side of the account, then you have to draw two parallel lines on the debit side of the account, and then copy the higher value on the debit side. Similarly, if you had the higher value appearing in the debit column, then you draw two parallel lines on the credit side of the account, and the next step is copy the total on the other side. So if the higher value appears in the credit column, you copy this higher value on the debit side of the account, and if the higher value appeared in the debit column of the account, you copy this on the credit side of the account. This is third step, and this very important step is shown in the next slide. So now you can see that we had the higher value on the credit side of the account, $66,000, and what we have done, I have drawn two parallel lines on the debit side of the account, and I copied that $66,000 on the debit side of the account. So this is very important step, and you must remember this step. Now we are down to the fourth step, and here I want you to examine the debit column of the account, and you will notice that if we add up all the figures in the debit column, then we find that these figures are different from the total $66,000 that we have plotted on the debit side of the account. So there is a difference. This difference you have to write down in the account, and this difference is the balance in the account, and this is shown in the next slide. Now you can see that the total in the debit column was $41,000, And the figure that we had written in between the two lines was $66,000. So naturally there's a difference, $41,000 and $66,000. So you have to take the difference. You can use a calculator, find out the difference between the two figures and write it down in the account, $25,000, and this is the balance in the account. So as a last step, we transfer this balance on the opposite side of the account and outside the account as balance B over D, $25,000. Now looking at this account, because we have now balanced this account, its balancing has been done. If we look at this account, we find that this account of Rexon had an opening balance of $45,000. Then we made some purchases of laptops, so we recorded $21,000 in the account as inventory purchase. And on the debit side, we made some payments to Rexon, $18,000 and $23,000. So these were the only transactions for the month. And then we had to balance this account. So the first step was to draw two parallel lines on the credit side and write the total, $66,000. And then the next step was to draw two parallel lines on the debit side of the account and copy the total, $66,000 there, and then add up the figures in the debit column, that is 18,000 and 23,000. That adds up to 41,000, and then take the difference between 41,000 and $66,000. The difference is 25,000, and that 25,000 is recorded in the account, and this is the balance in the account. And as a final step, we transfer this balance on the opposite side of the account as balance brought down, $25,000. So if someone asks you, what is the balance in the account of Rexon? So you have to say that Rexon has a credit balance of $25,000. So this is recorded here that as a last step, we transfer the balance in the account on the opposite side of the account, and we write balance B over D. So B over D means brought down. So the closing balance in the account is $25,000, and that is a credit balance. So the letter C over D mean carried down, and the letter B over D mean brought down. So to distinguish between a debit balance that is in the account or a credit balance, we use these abbreviations C over D and B over D. So C over D means that this is the balance in the account, and when it's recorded on the opposite side of the account, we write B over D. That means this becomes the opening balance for the next period. So if you are balancing your account on the 31st of January, and we write balance B over D, $25,000, so that $25,000 is the closing balance for the month of January, and also it is the opening balance for the month of February. So I have tried to explain this mechanics of balancing an account. This is, I understand, is the most complex exercise in accounting, and students who are learning accounting normally make mistakes in balancing accounts and they lose valuable marks. So try to go through this presentation several times, get a hang of it, register in your mind the steps that I have given you, and do lot of practice balancing accounts so that you are confident that you can balance accounts in the examination and gain good marks. So good luck, and let's see the last slide. So the last slide is always a thank you, and I advise you to refer to my other presentations that appear under accounting finance. And if you have any question, you can always contact me through my email address that is provided here. So I wish you best of luck, and see you around. Bye for now.